Welcome back to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. I received a digital donation this week from Tomix Fitzgomer. He's one of my fellow contributors here. If you like taking your gaming to the tabletop like I do, check out some of his work after this video. And now, let's go see what Rogue Legacy has to offer.
Your gaming ears likely perked up upon hearing that title. Yes, this is a roguelike game, but with a few unique twists. The castle in the game is semi-randomly built and populated, and you're pretty much guaranteed to die. Like, a lot. That's where the legacy part of the title comes in. You may be crestfallen by the death of Lady Shinoa VI, but one of her children will take her place soon enough. There's a huge amount of luck involved when it comes to your progeny. You have 3 children from which to choose, and you can trade them in for 3 more with an optional upgrade. There are 10 classes in the game, and you have no say in what classes your children will be. Let's say you really like the Barbarian class. You may get stuck with only 3 mages to choose from. Oh well, there's always next generation. Like classes, your character's sub-weapons are also randomly chosen. I'm sure some will balk that I'm not using the proper term, but Castlevania runs too deeply in my veins to change my vernacular now. But honestly, I don't think that's a problem. I'm sure Cellar Door Games had Castlevania in mind when they came up with the subs. Daggers, axes, and stopwatches are in this game, and they're literally identical to their Castlevania counterparts. In addition, Flame Barrier acts a lot like the Bible, Chakram will be familiar to fans of the Cross, and Conflux is clearly patterned on the Ricochet Rock. While there are other subs, I've literally covered half of them talking about their Castlevania inspirations. Others, such as the Scythe, still suit the game well. Finally, there are 36 traits with which your kids can be born. Each Rugrat will have 2 chosen at random. For more information, check out the companion article at theculturecache.com. These can really change how characters play, such as rewarding you with MP for each piece of furniture you smash or reducing your hit stun time. Interestingly, many of these traits would be considered negative in the real world, but are greatly beneficial in this game, such as ADHD granting you a 30% speed boost. All of this means that choosing your heir is, quite literally, the most important decision you make each time you play the game. You have to create your own sort of mental hierarchy of which classes, subs, and traits you like, as well as which to avoid. My favorite class is the Spell Sword, and I often seek them out. But with the wrong traits, such as Vertigo, I'd almost certainly pick a class I don't like as much. Similarly, I hate playing as a mage. Yes, I know, that is pretty strange given that I like the other magic-oriented class. Still, if the game offers me an OCD mage with peripheral artery disease and flame barrier, I'd be tempted to play as that class even though I normally avoid it. Obviously, there's a high degree of luck involved with how your children are constituted, but you still have leeway in their growth. After you choose an heir, you're taken to the Manor screen where you can purchase all manner of upgrades. Sorry, couldn't resist. Anyway, this is where you purchase permanent stat increases, unlock new classes, decrease MP costs of sub-weapons, and the like. It's also fun to see how various upgrades translate into building the manor itself, which is a cosmetic way of illustrating skill trees with which you are probably familiar. Another way to spend your hard-earned gold is at the blacksmith. Once you've purchased him from the manor, of course. He offers to craft equipment for you, and he holds on to any pieces you're not wearing. But he's not very intuitive. He can't forge anything on his own. Rather, you must find blueprints to give to him so he can make the equipment you desire. You can deck yourself out with a sword, a helmet, a breastplate, bracers, and a cape. But it's not that simple. Each piece of gear has a weight rating, and you have a carrying capacity to consider. It's one of the stats that you can increase through the manor, and it's an interesting way to balance out the gameplay. Naturally, better weapons and armor weigh more, so you have to consider what you want to prioritize, and that's often dependent on the class of your character. This adds an important layer of complexity to your character building. Your fortune can also buy you runes from the enchantress. Like the blacksmith, you must unlock her through the manor. And also like the blacksmith, you must find the runes before you can purchase them from her. Once you do, you can affix one rune to each piece of equipment you have, meaning you can have up to 5 of them at once. These runes expand your abilities, such as allowing you to double jump, regain lost HP with each kill, dash, or other fun things. They also stack, meaning if you equip 2 runes to double jump, it becomes triple jump. This is huge. It helps mitigate the luck factor by allowing you to directly choose some of your abilities, even though others are still somewhat beyond your control. Finally, you can pay the architect. As I'm sure you can guess, you must first unlock him through your manor. Once you do, you can hire him to lock down the castle. This removes the random element of the generation. Personally, I think his services are greatly overpriced, considering he charges you 40% of all the treasure you find during one run in the castle. I don't think it's worth it. Even worse, chests you loot stay looted during your next run, meaning you almost pay for the architect twice per use. Man, you're going to need a lot of money to play this game. Fear not, it's all in-game currency, so no need to worry about abusive DLC tactics. Thankfully, money is pretty easy to come by in the castle. If you grew up slaying vampires in Castlevania as I did, can you tell, then you'll instinctively try to attack all manner of background objects. It seems that Cellar Door Games was also raised with the vampire killer in hand, as that's one ready-made source of revenue. Enemies also drop money pretty often, but the real moolah comes from the treasure chests, which have different values in and of themselves. The most valuable often contains the earlier mentioned blueprints, runes, or even permanent stat increases. So what's it like actually exploring Castle Handsome? As mentioned, this is a roguelike game, although it prefers the term roguelite. There are 4 distinct areas to the game, and they're always roughly in the same place, unless you're playing as a Lizdexit character. You start in the castle, to the right is the forest, above is the Maya, and the darkness is down below. Even then, the exact makeup of each area is randomly generated each time, along with the enemies you find there. I say that, and they're randomized within certain limits. Particular enemies are found in specific areas of the game. For example, mimic-type enemies are only found in the Maya. This means you always have at least some idea what to expect based on your current location. Locations are also somewhat sorted by difficulty. You start in the castle, and it's the easiest. Next is the forest. By the time you get to the Maya, you'll likely have noticed that harder enemies are increasingly common. Finally, the darkness is the hardest. The game even hints at this up front by limiting your visibility while you're in this area. Speaking of difficulty, this game has it and then some. It's hard, but fair and fitting. It really makes the growth of your family line apparent, as it always seems to be just a tiny touch more difficult than you're ready for at any given moment. So when you do manage to best that difficult area or boss, you really feel a sense of accomplishment. This just beyond your control difficulty even holds true once you beat the game. This game does feature a New Game Plus, and all your data carries over. But don't go thinking you'll just brute force your way through the game a second time. It ups the difficulty accordingly. Still, to let players keep pace, better equipment blueprints are only available on a New Game Plus, so you'll be playing through more than once if you want to get everything. More than twice, in fact. Yup. This game even goes so far as to include a New Game Plus 2, which is even harder than Plus. In fact, I'm currently on New Game Plus 4, and I have no idea how high it goes. I've talked to people who are in double digits, and they said it continues to get harder with each increase. It seems there's no limit to just how high enemy levels can go, or if there is, it's pretty darn high. In addition to simply raising enemy levels, difficulty increases in another way. Nearly every regular enemy can exist in one of 3 progressively more powerful forms. For example, there's a very common eyeball enemy. The easiest version is white and shoots one fireball at a time at you. The intermediate one is red and shoots a stream of shots at you. The hardest derivative is blue, and it fires streams of 3-shot projectile spreads at you. During the normal game, you'll mostly encounter white ones. Reds become the norm on a new game plus, but you'll have to get used to blues on plus 2s and beyond. Don't let the difficulty scare you off though. As long as you go in expecting to die, you'll be okay. Just keep in mind that as long as you secured enough money to purchase at least one upgrade, rune, or piece of equipment, then it was a successful run, since each of these are permanent empowerments to your bloodline. Control is nearly spot on with this game. The first time I loaded it up, I was pleased to discover that buttons were exactly where I expected them to be. I didn't have my Steam controller yet, so my first impressions of the game were spent with a Logitech PS2 clone. Square is attack, X is jump, circle is sub-weapon, and triangle is class ability. In time, I unlocked the ability to dash, which defaulted to L2 and R2 for left and right, respectively. I would have preferred L1 and R1, but that's small potatoes. 99.9% of the time, the control was perfect. But every now and then, it did seem to miss an input. And that wasn't just my controller, because I played through the game 3 more times with my Steam controller, and I found that to still be the case. Still, I'm very happy with the controls. As for the gameplay itself, it's very different. At first glance, the game seems to be heavily influenced by the Castlevania series. Given the sub-weapons, the Castlevania inspiration really isn't up for debate, but the more you play the game, the more you realize that it's only Castlevania in the most basic of ways. The actual gameplay is much closer to Contra. In fact, as the difficulty really starts cranking up, you'll realize that you're actually playing a bullet hell game much more so than an action platformer. But the change is gradual, and it really helps you sharpen your skills for even more difficult games out there as a result. There's a surprising element of strategy and memory to this game, as well as its aforementioned luck. Teleporter and boss rooms always have a statue on the left with chicken in it, and one on the right with water in it. Resist the urge to smash everything in sight, and you have a functional, fairly reliable method of healing at your disposal for when you need it. One of the possible room orientations you can find, though only rarely, contains a Fountain of Youth, which you can use in much the same way. It's a single-use fountain, but it's good for healing about 1/3 of your HP and MP, so don't consume it until you actually need it. You'd be amazed at how much farther you can get when you more effectively use the supplies you're given. Graphics are cartoony and also functional. You'll learn very quickly exactly how close you can get to something before it damages you. The music features some excellent 8 and 16-bit throwback style. The sound effects are important, and you really need to pay attention to the sound cues the game presents you with. They're a big part of staying alive. You won't always be able to see incoming shots, but if you at least hear them, you're prepared to take evasive action. I don't see any overt negatives to this game. Yes, it is very difficult, but I like hard games, so this doesn't really bother me. Furthermore, the challenge is never too great to overcome. Defeating the obstacles the game throws at you is its own reward. Frankly, I miss those days. There's also a high degree of luck to the game, but it always gives you enough tools to make your own luck, so you can at least heavy-handedly tip the scales in your favor. It's absolutely possible to get 6 children with dreadful traits and classes and subs you abhor, but it's not likely. You may have to settle for subpar characters at times, but that's where the equipment and runes help you keep ahead of their drawbacks.
So, is Rogue Legacy worth it? It's only about $15, and I've put 60 hours into it myself. That is an excellent rate of return. And if you play your cards right, you can probably get it cheaper than that, because Steam frequently puts its games on sale. If Rogue Legacy sounds like it might be right for you, please consider purchasing it through one of the Amazon links provided at theculturecache.com. It really helps defray the costs of us bringing this content to you. As for me, yes, Rogue Legacy is certainly worth it. Thanks for watching.